The 911 system is for life-threatening emergencies only, and that doesn't include getting a wrong pizza order or being bored. But some people have used 911 to report such problems, which can make their call a crime. Let's take a look at the most bizarre calls to 911. Number 1. Man calls 911 to complain he's too high. Officers find him surrounded by junk food. In October, an Ohio man called police to complain he was too high after smoking pot, according to reports. Authorities were called to the home by a 22-year-old man who had smoked marijuana, according to the police report. The officer responding to the call could reportedly hear the man groaning from a room in the house. The officer found the man on the floor in the fetal position and was surrounded by a plethora of Doritos, Pepperidge Farm Goldfish and Chips Ahoy cookies, according to the report. The man also told the officer he couldn't feel his hands because he smoked too much weed. Number 2. Cops say a man called 911 to complain that his girlfriend wouldn't have sex with him. A disgruntled South Carolina man called 911 in October to gripe that his girlfriend wouldn't have sex with him, according to an arrest report. When Spartanburg police went to Patrick Doggett's home in response to a domestic disturbance call on Wednesday, he told an officer that he had dialed 911 because his girlfriend would not give him any ass, according to an arrest report obtained by the Smoking Gun. His girlfriend reportedly told police the 53-year-old had been drinking all day. According to the report, she told officers that he got into bed with her but she had her grandchild with her. He then got up and called 911, according to the report. Doggett was placed under arrest for public intoxication and was transported to the county jail. However, he has not been charged with dialing 911 without an emergency. It is unclear if he has entered a plea. Number 3. 2 drug dealers dial 911 in hilarious call and give themselves up. In January, police in Rexburg, Idaho, released the audio from a 911 call a year prior that came when a pair of paranoid drug dealers said they wanted to surrender because they thought undercover narcotics cops were tailing them. They weren't. They thought they was being followed, Rexburg Police Captain Randy Lewis told InsideEdition.com. Every time a car would go by, they would get out and throw up their hands. But no one stopped. Then they got irritated and called 911. Hi, we're the 2 dumbasses that got caught trying to bring some stuff through your border and all your cops are just driving around us like a bunch of jackwagons, says Leland Ialidoyanti, 22, who was traveling in a car with Holland Sword, 23 and 20+ pounds of marijuana, headed for Montana. The dealers had more than 20 pounds of neatly packaged pot. I'd just like for you guys to end it. If you could help me out with that, we would like to just get on with it, he added. The stunned dispatcher replied, "You got caught doing what?" The man details how the pair has drugs and a dog, and would just like to give themselves up. Ialidoyanti said, and, yeah. A bunch of your cops driving around in a bunch of civilian cars not wanting to pick us up. I don't know what's the deal. I was just wondering if you could help us out and just end it. The dispatcher handled himself real well, Lewis said, cracking up. He was like, "Are you kidding me? We get prank calls all the time. But this is just so freaking funny." The men were convicted of drug trafficking and are currently incarcerated at a state rehab facility. Number 4. Woman dials 911 after pizzeria mixes up toppings. On a recording of a March 911 call, a woman told the dispatcher that she had ordered a small pizza, half cheese, half bacon, from Empire Pizza in Hartford, Connecticut. Instead, she was handed a pie with half cheese, half hamburger, she said. "I have a question," the customer, who identified herself as Ashley, said. "If I order a pizza and they don't want to give me my money back, can you guys do something?" The confused dispatcher replied, "Ma'am, I'm not sure. That's something you have to take up with them, but that's not something you would dial 911 for. 911 is for life-threatening emergencies only." The dispatcher explained that the situation was not a police matter but Ashley kept calling back. But she insisted she'd like an officer involved, saying if the pizzeria was able to call the police when I went over there and started arguing, she should be able to enlist the help of an officer too. As the call shows, the dispatcher finally gave in, and said she can have an officer meet her outside the pizzeria. "Don't go in and say anything to them until you speak with an officer," she said. It is unclear what happened. Officers did not comment on whether she has been charged for misusing 911, according to reports. Number 5. Woman called 911 to complain about lack of cheese on her pizza. A Canadian woman called police to complain that the pizza she received from a local restaurant did not have enough cheese on it, earlier this month. The unidentified woman in Newfoundland, Canada, thought her pizza was unsatisfactory and wanted to do something about it. Instead of celebrating the end of the week with a pizza, she called 911 Friday to issue the emergency, and not to the pizzeria she ordered from. Constable Jeff Higdon of the Royal Newfoundland Constabulary told the CBC, the individual had an issue with the company she bought the pizza from, and there wasn't enough cheese, and had approached the company and didn't like whatever response they had given. I'm not sure if by calling us they assumed there was some sort of action we could take, or what the situation was, but of course we advised the individual they just needed to speak with the manager of the company and not the police. The constable said that the dispatcher described the call as the call, that one call that will always stick with you, as completely bizarre. There is no word on whether the woman was arrested or fined for tying up the emergency lines or if she ever called the actual pizzeria to complain. Number 6. Man thinks he hears police helicopters, calls 911 to admit to growing pot. In December, cops say a Florida man allegedly growing marijuana heard what he thought were police helicopters and called 911 to turn himself in, but they weren't looking for him. Jasper Harrison, 47, was reportedly in a storage unit when he heard helicopters above him and apparently became worried they were there for him, so he called police. But the Edgewater police were investigating a man's death that happened to be on the same street. The helicopter wasn't even a part of the police's brigade, it belonged to a local TV station. Police say when he called the cops, he alerted them to his whereabouts, and when they say they arrived they found marijuana growing inside the unit. He faces charges of cultivating cannabis within 1,000 feet of a school and possession of the drug with intent to sell. He was released from jail on bond. According to Volusia County Court, he has not entered a plea and will have a court hearing next month. Number 7. Man calls 911 to chat about Hitler because he was bored. In February, police arrested a 28-year-old Florida man because he was calling 911 out of boredom, authorities say. DeLand police say Michael Gilman called 911 at least 6 times in one day, including 5 times in a 5-hour time span, to save himself from monotony. They say he discussed random topics such as his eligibility to vote, being poor, as well as Adolf Hitler on the calls. At about 1 a.m. on Saturday, police arrived to Gilman's home, where he was still on the phone with the 911 dispatcher. According to a police report, an officer heard him talking about Hitler and juice. When the officer asked Gilman what he was doing, he allegedly said, "Talking to your dispatcher because I'm bored." Police say he also asked the dispatcher to throw people out of their homes in order to serve and protect. Gilman also allegedly tried to report an emergency at the White House. He was arrested and charged with misuse of the 911 system. Gilman was later found guilty by a judge in Volusia County Court and was ordered to serve probation.
To smuggle marijuana across state lines accidentally turned themselves into authorities.
Hi, we're the 2 dumb that got caught trying to bring some stuff through your border, and all your cops are just driving around with like a bunch of jack wagons. And I just really would like you guys to end it. If you could help me out with that, we just like to get on with it.
You got caught doing what?
According to authorities, Leland Ayala Doliente and Hollard Sword were traveling from Las Vegas to Bozeman, Montana with 20 pounds of pot in their car when they called the cops on themselves. Court documents show the men were using marijuana during their trip, and after entering Idaho, they thought they were being followed by undercover police officers. The pair pulled over and called 911. They said they just wanted the police to stop following them, which the police said they were not doing.
And yeah, a bunch of your cops driving around a bunch of civilian cars, just not wanting to pick us up. I don't know what's the deal. I was just wondering if you could help us out and just end it.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, maybe call one of them. I don't know. It's getting cold out here, man. I just want to get warm and just get on with this whole thing. So.
Okay. Where are you at right now? Do you guys have any like guns or weapons or anything on you at all?
We don't have any of that sort with us. Just a bunch
okay, cool.
of snacks and stuff. So.
I just want to make sure that they're just curious. So.
Yeah. We tried walking away from the car a couple of times, and that didn't work. We tried waving them down, it didn't work. So I don't know what's going on here.
Okay, I do have one of my marked units. He's on his way over there, so he said he's on his way to meet you. So.
All right, thank you.
Police say when they arrived at the scene, both men had their hands behind their heads and told cops they were surrendering. A dog cage with 20 pounds of marijuana inside had been placed next to the car by the men, according to authorities. The men were each charged with 1 felony count of trafficking marijuana. Be sure to watch Inside Edition.